Right. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we're going to be focusing on ways to keep your restaurant vermin free. And we have a lot of great tips and tools to share with you all. So first, just a quick little overview of the agenda that we'll be reviewing today. We're going to go over the legal responsibility, what kind of codes and regulations are provided to us as the local enforcement agency to help ensure facilities remain vermin-free, ways for you as a facility operator to identify the problem, and give a little background as to what the public health risk associated with those is. We'll talk about the corrective action that can be taken and should be taken by each facility before our staff come out to make sure that the problem doesn't persist within their restaurants or markets or food facilities. And then we'll go over the process for reopening a facility if it happens to be closed by our department. So one of the main reasons that we wanted to put this presentation together today was really looking at all of our closure data. And so here on the screen, you can see the past five and a half fiscal years, what we've been able to observe and document with vermin closures related to all of the other closures for other imminent health hazards throughout each year. And if you notice, the percentage is very high. So, over 70% now, we're almost at 80% last year of our vermin closures or of our closures are due to vermin infestations. And that's why we're focusing on this today. Now, when we talk about closures, that's just a single point in time, but also we have to work with facilities that have multiple closures and have that continued non-compliance. And when that happens, we have to start our enforcement process, which leads us into scheduling an administrative hearing. In last year, we had 66 administrative hearing schedules, and 45 of those were all related to vermin issues. So that means we had 45 facilities that had multiple cases of vermin infestations that had to be closed multiple times. The year before that, we had 38 out of 57. So we're sitting at almost 70% of our administrative hearings have a component to address vermin. So let's start with the legal responsibility and where that comes from in statute and local ordinance. The first section here is going to be our California Retail Food Code. We often refer to this as Cal Code. There's 4 sections shown here on the screen. The first 2 really focuses on definitions. So when we talk about vermin today, and in any case, that's going to be cockroaches, mice, rats, and any similar pests that carry disease. And so cockroaches and rodents are going to be the main focus today. When we talk about a vermin infestation, there's no set number established with an infestation. We get that question a lot. What a vermin infestation actually means is the presence of vermin within a food facility and where we can see live bodies, fresh droppings, or vomit, urine stains, gnaw marks, anything else that's a sign that can result in contamination to food, equipment, packaging, or utensils. And there is, like I said, no set number for this because vermin can get into everything. And we'll go over that a little bit later today. Now, the last 2 focus on what steps need to be taken if there is a vermin. So the first one is really the preventative portion where a food facility needs to be constructed to prevent entrance and harborage of any vermin, included but not limited to rodents and insects. And then immediate closure. So if there's any imminent health hazard that's found, and we identify vermin infestation as an imminent health hazard, if it cannot be immediately corrected, the enforcement officer may temporarily suspend the permit and order the food facility or cottage food operation immediately closed. And that's because a vermin infestation cannot be corrected immediately. You may kill what you see, but that doesn't control the problem that's hiding in the walls, the ceilings, and possibly in your equipment. Now, the second portion of legal oversight is in our San Diego County Code of Regulatory Ordinances, and this just supplements what our state law and Cal Code provides, and this is for notice of closure for a food facility. And so the director or the agents of the director, which would be our division, when a facility is ordered closed due to an imminent health hazard, then that's going to result in a posting of a closure sign by our staff on that food facility. And a note of no other person than the director or us as a proxy of the director, shall remove the notice posted by them pursuant to this section. So that means when a closure notice is posted, our department is the only one that's able to remove that once the issue has been resolved. And the last is just a note that's included on every one of our health permits that's provided to our food facilities. Again, just reiterating this information that's provided in state law and local ordinance, that the director can order the permit suspended for any violation of any relevant requirement established and provided by law. And in this case, our focus is on the need to keep a facility vermin free. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Linnell, and she's going to focus on identifying the problem and go over some of the types of vermin and the public health risk associated with them. Linnell, you are muted. If you could unmute yourself and restart.
Okay, so this is a diagram to show the different types of rodents. So you have the Norway rat, which is large body with a smaller tail and brown in color. The roof rat, which its tail is as large as its body and it's dark in color. And then the house mouse, which is really small. Since rodents are nocturnal, it's helpful to look at their feces to identify what type of rodent issue you may be having. Typically looking at the feces, the house mouse droppings are really, really small, 30 to 60 millimeters, where the roof rat has pointed ends on both sides and the droppings are really black. Where the Norway rat, it has like blunt ends, so it's kind of rounded on both sides. So identifying the types, using the droppings, helps you discuss with your pest control what kind of rodent you may be having. Next. So for the rodents, it's key to identify first if you have a mouse or a rat problem, assessing food contact surfaces, if they have access to have come in contact with your food contact surfaces, if you have open food that could be able to be contaminated. Are you using control devices such as rat traps or glue traps? Assessing entry points and harborage areas, which would be looking at your ceilings, around pipes, unused equipment, gaps below doors. Also checking the exterior of the facility to make sure that there's no openings where rodents can get in. And then just know the public health impact, that they carry disease and that they're mechanical vectors. And by mechanical vector, that means that anything they touch, they pick up pathogens, which whatever they come in contact with, it's contaminated. Diseases associated with rodents is salmonella and meningitis. I'm sure you've heard of hantavirus. And then just know that if you're seeing evidence of droppings, rub marks, dead bodies, that's indication that you need to clean and sanitize, reach out to your pest control, and just know as a preventative measure, if you're initially seeing that first bit of evidence, you can self-close and call your pest control company and eliminate the problem right away instead of trying to wait and see if the problem will go away. Next. Next, thanks. So these are just some photos of good examples of like exterior of the building. So the upper left corner where there's a pipe going into the wall, but there's a large gap where a rodent could enter. Looking around at your food to make sure that nothing's been chewed on, such as the tea bags in the upper right. Also, the chew marks in cardboard. They will use the cardboard for nesting material. In the lower right, it's more of an indicator that you should monitor those hard to reach areas in your food facility, those areas that are cluttered with lots of equipment that you're not really using, or you got a good deal and you bought a whole bunch of food that's not really selling, that you have access to those areas, because you could find a skeletal remain of a rodent. Next. These are just examples of what would be a good indicator of like active rodent infestation. So if you're catching rodents, multiple rodents on a glue trap, it's time to call your pest control. If you have areas with like pallets, such as a warehouse or a grocery store, make sure you're checking underneath to see that there's no footprints indicating that there's been activity at night. Also, equipment that's really heavy, making sure that you're cleaning underneath, checking large things such as the slicer, and also checking your food to make sure that nothing got in and chewed the package or literally left fresh droppings on the food, which would be considered gross contamination. Next. This is an example of things that you can do to help vermin-proof your food facility. So metal mesh, using it on the exterior of the building, as well as sealing areas, sealing up pipes that go into your facility, the weather strip with metal so that the rodents can't chew the rubber, and then obviously using licensed pest control are ways to eliminate and prevent vermin. Next. So the next vermin I'd like to talk about is the cockroach. So the most common cockroach is the German cockroach. Those are typically the ones that we find in the restaurant kitchens. You have your Americans and Orientals. Typically, they are cockroaches that like to be in the sewers. They like damp. They don't like warm and humid. Typically, American cockroach, if you see one in a food facility, they're usually solo. The only time you really see an infestation of the American cockroach or the Oriental is if you've done plumbing work or some kind of clogged drain. Sometimes that agitates the American cockroaches and they will enter the food facility. The left-hand side, the picture, this is an excellent picture of the German cockroach in all of its life cycles, including the female whose egg sac is coming out of her bottom end. Note that the egg casings, they're very important because within the egg sac, it can carry up to 48 babies. So that can start an infestation by itself. Some of the diseases known to be caused by the cockroach is E. coli, Salmonella, and Staphylococcus. So for identifying the cockroach, you want to understand if it's German or if it's Oriental or American. You want to look for Finkel spotting and make sure you're not seeing any egg casings. Identifying what type of life cycle you're seeing in your food facility, be it nymph, juvenile, or adult. Assessing entry points and harborage areas. Typically, these are holes or gaps between paneling underneath 3-compartment sinks. Cardboard is typically how the German cockroach gets into your food facility, and then drains, as I had discussed about the American cockroach. Again, understanding the public impact, making sure you know that German cockroaches like to harbor in dark, moist, warm areas, also in tight areas, and they are nocturnal, and again, they are mechanical vectors, so anything they touch, they're contaminating it. Next. So for the biology and behavior of the cockroach, from egg to adult, it typically takes 36 to 60 days for them to go through a life cycle. 70% of the population is the nymph size, which are very, very small. The German cockroach lives 20 to 30 weeks as an adult. They prefer warm and humid environments. Where they leave their Finkel spotting, it's areas that were previously inhabited by cockroaches, so they will tend to harbor there again. The egg casing typically has the 48 eggs. A female can lay 1 egg sac per month, and in her lifetime, she can lay 8. So these are some photos giving some examples of like the Finkel spotting. So the upper left-hand side, all those brown speckle points, that is their Finkel droppings, and that invites other cockroaches to come and harbor there. Unused equipment or equipment that you may have picked up from a yard sale, those can be infested inside the compressors, in the gaskets. The lower left, if you have a glue monitor and it's inundated with that many cockroaches, you have infestation and you have enough evidence that you should be taking a proactive approach to eliminating the problem. And the lower right is an excellent example of an egg casing. You can see the small striations on the brown area, which is the egg case, and all the little white transparent things coming out. Those are the actual nymphs that don't have color yet. Common areas that the cockroaches will harbor, and I'm pretty much focusing on the German cockroach, is when you have like a standing grease trap where the lines go into the trap, there's really tight gaps around it, and they will harbor within there. Wheels, caster wheels, they will harbor up inside the caster because nobody's moving it around, and it's nice and dark and tight, and no one's really going to notice they're there. Also, a very common area is the plumbing fixtures that go into the wall under hand sinks, one compartment sinks, three compartment sinks. Those are typical areas that you should self-check. And the lower left-hand side, that's just an example of things that you should not have. Like don't leave dirty dishes overnight. Don't leave standing water, giving them a food and water source that they want to stay. Next. Um, Again, just some more images. So caster wheels, as you can see, there's multiple cockroaches in the caster wheel. Conduit lines that go up between the wall for the electrical. They tend to harbor between the wall and the conduit lines because it's nice and tight and it's warm. And then glue monitor, it's just giving an example of multiple generations in a glue monitor. Say that monitor's only been there 3 days and you're seeing this multiple generations. That's a key that you should self-close and you need to call your pest control company immediately. And then again, just equipment that's not used, it can have infestation and nesting. So next I'm going to talk about trying to correct the problem, vermin proofing, cleaning, and treatment. So areas of focus are always going to be the focal points of entry points, typically lines that go from the ceiling in the crawl space to say your soda compressor, your soda syrups, food and water sources, and then harborage areas. So like panels that aren't flush to the wall, cracks between the tiles and into the wall, areas like that would be good harborage areas that you should focus on. Next. So for entry points for like fully enclosed food preparation areas, if you have those entry doors into the kitchen, but you notice on the lower bottom part of those two doors, there's a large gap. So if you have that gap going in your kitchen and you leave the front door open, you're just inviting vermin such as rodents to come on in, go through the kitchen doors and find a place to hide and nest in your food preparation area. The upper right-hand side is just an example of receiving doors, making sure they're not damaged. If you can see light, that's enough for a rodent to get in. And then also making sure you don't have any holes that go into the floor. So the bottom photo is kind of an example where it's damaged. It's with a grease trap and it's not fully covered, so cockroaches could harbor in there. Next. These are just some examples of like hard to reach areas that are hard to get to that you really need to kind of clean out so that you can at least get to the walls and kind of assess the area, making sure that those hard to reach areas where food could have fallen, behind the prep unit, underneath in the hard to reach area, kind of like on the right where you see like a whole loaf of bread and tomatoes. You need to make sure that you're checking areas and cleaning it frequently and making sure you don't keep a lot of equipment outside as well as inside the food facility. That's just basically harborage asking to happen and nesting where you could have a really bad infestation. And then again, getting in those are hard to reach areas. So the lower right-hand side, it just kind of demonstrates like there's droppings, it's hard to reach. It's something that you might not be using all the time. So maybe consider getting rid of it. Next. And then food and water source is key. They need water to survive. And obviously, the rodents will eat food right away. Checking your food, making sure there's no chew marks, nothing's contaminated, that there's no droppings, making sure that you use pest control, and make sure that there's no like leaks. If you have a leak under a sink and you have a catch basin, make sure you're dumping the catch basin every night so that there's not that extra standing water as a water source for vermin. And then for cleaning and sanitizing, basically, you have to eliminate all the dead and dying cockroaches. We recommend sweeping them up or vacuuming instead of power washing so that you don't dilute any type of treatment that your pest control used. Make sure to eliminate any egg casings because they're a little bit strong and they don't always get affected by pest control. So you want to make sure that you've removed the egg casings because if not, you could have a reinfestation just with one egg casing. For the rodents, you want to make sure you clean any urine, droppings, nesting, any dead rodents, rub marks, and then make sure that you clean and sanitize all food contact and non-food contact surfaces. If there's things that can't really be cleaned or sanitized, like tableware or napkins, you should dispose of them. And then for treatment, just make sure you're working with your licensed pest control company to determine what order you should do. Like what kind of treatment, when should we clean? Can we, like, how long do we wait until we clean the floors versus a food contact surface such as a prep table? And then the exclusion work, which is really important and key to kind of isolate you in your protected bubble. Sealing up of holes, cracks, crevices, any kind of entry points, interior and exterior, so that the pest control can be effective. During the treatment stages, make sure you're doing a follow-up inspection, um, scheduling what should be required and directed from your pest control. If they recommend doing treatments once a week, take them up on that. They're the professionals. After initial clean out, you might see some activity, and this is where you need to be proactive and determine when are you really ready for our department to come out to do a reinspection for approval to reopen, because we're not allowed to see any live activity, even if they're dying. Ensure that you're working with your pest control, that they're leaving you notes. I recommend that you ask them to do a walkthrough to make sure there's nothing else that needs to be fixed or repaired prior to an inspection. And constantly work with your pest control company if they're applying bait, how often should they be doing it? And this is to ensure that you stay in compliance and that the infestation is eliminated and it's not going to come back. Also, make sure your pest control is giving you notes on repairing any kind of leaks for water, and then making sure that your food is contained and protected so that it's not exposed to and invite an infestation. And now Ryan's going to talk about opening your facility.
All right, thank you, Linnell. And really, when we talk about reopening your facility, our hope is that this is all done without the intervention of DEHQ. So we really want facilities to focus on what we call active managerial control, where you put procedures in place to regularly check for vermin, train your staff to check for them, make sure that they are notifying you if they see this, and that you're taking the proper corrective action. In this case, if you see an active infestation, the proper corrective action is going to be to close your facility, do all the things that Linnell went over with cleaning, treatment, and then verification, and then reopening your facility when you have verified that there's no longer a problem. And really, that's to protect the public's health, because we don't want the diseases transmitted by these vermin to be passed on to your customers, whether it's through the actual food, plates, utensils, or contact surfaces that your staff's going to be touching. So, regarding reopening facilities, this is a great quote that somebody shared with us, and I wanted to share with you. We must be trained to see what others overlook. And this is really the crux of the difference that we see with our staff and versus a lot of the staff working in our food facilities, because our staff, we are trained to find vermin as part of our inspection process. And we really want to empower our food facilities to do the exact same thing. So hopefully the information we've shared today will help with that. And that way you can take responsibility and have your staff become your own health inspectors to look for this. So what do we mean by that? We're looking at a self-inspection. So prior to reopening, or even without having a closure or even seeing active infestation, the self-inspection is really key. So we've got the what, the when, and the where. So what kind of equipment do you want to use to help you with this? And this is what you might see our staff use during your inspections. You're going to want to use a flashlight because, like Linnell said, cockroaches, rodents, they are nocturnal. They live in dark areas. They're not going to come out usually into the main floor where people are working or where it's bright. Look underneath and behind all your equipment, in your corners, inside your cabinets. You're looking for any sign of vermin activity, like we mentioned. Those are going to be the droppings, the nesting, the grease, the rub marks, or actual live or dead bodies. The when. So, like I said, they're nocturnal. The best time to inspect and check to see if you have a problem is first thing in the morning, right? Right when you come in, because that would have been at the end of where you would see their activity cycle at its highest. It's before you have staff in the facility moving around, before you've turned on all the lights and all your equipment. So really kind of having that built into your opening procedures is going to be great, because then you can identify if there's a problem early on before you get into the production cycle of your day. Call your pest control, take care of the treatment, and then hopefully move on to operation the day or the day after that. And then the where. So where are you looking? You're looking up, under, and around the facility. You're going corner to corner, floor to ceiling, checking in your food and beverage preparation areas, the dishwashing areas, motors and compressors of your equipment, your cook's line, cabinet hinges, door trim, jambs. I mean, these are small creatures that can get into anything. And so that's where you really want to kind of put yourself into the mindset of something that is, for cockroaches, less than an inch, and for rodents, a few inches that they can squeeze their little bodies everywhere. So these are the DEHQ reopening procedures, and we hope that every facility would follow these same procedures, even when not issued a closure notice by our department. So you're going to want to verify first. Verify no further activity is present, right, before either reopening or calling our department for that reopen inspection. And that can be either with your pest control company doing the side-by-side inspection after they've done the treatment and you've cleaned. That could be with your team coming in first thing in the morning, doing a thorough examination of all the areas we've gone over today, just making sure you see no activity. Because if you're still seeing activity in your main prep areas, that means there's still activity in your facility, in your walls, in your ceilings, in your equipment, that they're starting to push out into the more common area to find more food and water. Contact. So any food facility wants to contact their assigned inspector, request that reopen inspection. Because this is an additional inspection, because of the closure, there is an invoice that gets generated for the reopening inspection that needs to get paid. And that is paid at our hourly rate for the time we spend at the inspection. And then a follow-up inspection. So this is something that we are implementing with our inspection process, because we've seen such a high volume of vermin closures. And like I shared earlier, such a high volume of administrative hearings because we have continued non-compliance for this. So after we reopen a food facility, our team is going to come back out within 15 days. And the purpose of that is to verify that ongoing control and treatment measures have put into place. Because often what we see will come out, we'll have to issue a closure notice. The facility will call us to reopen them. We'll come back in 60 to 90 days to do a follow-up routine inspection, and we find the infestation back. And we'll have to issue another closure notice. So we're trying to really help build these control procedures within our food facilities to prevent an ongoing infestation that puts the public's health at risk. And so we did put together a little vermin inspection training video by one of our staff and our county communications team to really help walk through a kitchen inspection. It's very short. It's only about 3 minutes. So I'm going to play this for you all right now. And this is also another video that we will have posted on our website for later reference.
Your restaurant's cleanliness is more than just good business. It's